Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of our podcast where we talk about why you should rethink buying a house in 2023. In today's podcast, we go over rates and housing affordability, renting versus owning, as well as our take on the government deficit and where we're at in our economy.
Yeah, and more importantly, after we get through that data, we'll spend some time talking about how you can navigate spiritually, emotionally difficult times. Because we believe we're heading to some difficult times in this real estate market. And we hope we give you some tools that you can use to get through it yourself.
Namaste, and welcome to the Tru Conscious Couple podcast. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Brad, and we are the Tru Conscious Couple.
And the purpose for our podcast is to share our journey of our relationship, our blended family, our business in real estate, in hopes that you can find some tools and things to help you along your journey as well.
Thank you for coming along. Episode 33. All right.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's episode number 33. And today we're going to switch it up a little bit on you and talk about real estate. It's been a while since we've talked about real estate. But the name of today's episode is Why You Should Rethink Buying a House in 2023.
There you go.
And I know that may sound funny coming from a couple of real estate people, but hang with us and we'll talk about a few things that we just feel are important about the economy that we're in.
Well, and hopefully you'll come away from this with some more information so that you can make more informed decisions. And this is intended for anybody, whether you're a real estate agent, real estate investor, or if you're just a regular consumer. You buy, you're planning on buying, or you're thinking maybe I'd like to buy as an investor, maybe buying your first time home. We're just going to give you some information that hopefully will, if it resonates with you, great, take it. And if it doesn't, throw it out. This is coming from our experience. Just as a reminder, Tiffany's been a licensed real estate agent and broker for over 12 years now. I've been in this game full-time since 1999. So almost 25 years of experience, literally thousands of transactions under our belt. The ups, the downs, wins, losses. We try to be fairly transparent about the fact that we don't have it all figured out. And so like everything, this is just information, and we would invite you at the start. The name of this podcast is the Tru Conscious Couple. Consciousness is just being aware. A big part of consciousness, anyways, is being aware, and then allowing your own discernment to help guide you in the direction you want to go.
And really, that is what this podcast is about: is sharing information, just the logical information that's available out there about rates, housing affordability right now, renting versus owning, and the deficit with the government right now. And
so those are the three key things that we're going to be talking about: renting versus buying, and that's a fun discussion. Most people think that when real estate people talk about it, it's always buy. So we'll talk about that.
So let's start with rates and housing affordability. What are your thoughts, Brad? I guess we should start with what the current interest rate is, which last I checked was close to 7%.
Yeah, we've seen bumps lately, and now people are actually. I was in one of our partners' office last week or 2 days ago, and he was locking somebody with a 740 credit score at 7.25. And they had a 10% down payment. So actually, if you're getting below 7 at this point, you're actually doing pretty good. We're on a steady march to 8% interest rates, and I believe we'll be there probably by the end of August.
Yeah, and if you're paying attention to the Fed and Jerome Powell, while in this last session they didn't actually raise the interest rates, they've been very clear about their plan to continue to raise the interest rates. I think they came out on July 10th saying that their intention is to continue to raise the rates at least twice more before the end of the year.
Yeah, that was actually the president of the Fed out of San Francisco. And she said they're anticipating at least 2 more rate increases because the inflation numbers and the way interest rates respond are to inflationary numbers. Interest rate is simply a matter to try to check inflation. Anybody who is buying anything right now, whether it's a house, a gallon of milk, a gallon of gas, shoes, things are much more expensive today than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah. Simple, like supply and demand, we've printed so much money, which has got us in this situation where we're dealing with so much inflation. And because we've just been printing money, it's shot the cost of everything like through the roof, including housing. And so a lot of real estate agents and people, like one of the things I'm hearing is like 7 is still a great interest rate when it's not like double digits like it was in the 80s. And while, yes, that's true, the other problem that we're dealing with is you weren't paying $500,000 on average to buy a house in the 80s. You were on average paying less than $100,000 in the 80s.
Yeah, in Utah you were paying around $35,000 to $40,000.
Right. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, you and I both bought our first houses in the 90s. Mine was in 96 or 97 and yours was in 99, correct?
2001 actually.
2001. Okay. And I paid $96,000 for my house, first house.
I paid 97.
I assumed an FHA mortgage at 5.5%.
Yeah.
That was one of the ways you could find cheaper interest rates, but the market rate at that time was 7.5%.
Yeah.
So I assumed somebody else's mortgage at 5.5%. And by the way, if you don't know about assumable mortgages, send us a message. We'll explain how that works. But it's a really cool strategy. But the housing price is not just a factor of interest rates, the housing expense is not just a factor of interest rates. The housing expense is a factor of interest rates and purchase price. And so markets change up and down based off of housing affordability.
Yeah.
And demand and supply.
Well, and, I hate to bring this up, but the fact of the matter is in our industry, realtors can have this persona just like car salesmen that they'll just do anything to make a sell. And I cringe at, these agents out there that are saying things like, marry the house and date the rate. Just buy the house, because while I do believe that homeownership is important and it is a huge contributor to building wealth in America, it is like everybody should own a house. I absolutely believe that. But you should own a house with having all of the information and knowing what you're up against. And as a realtor, I feel it's our fiduciary responsibility to navigate people through this process and help them understand what is going on. It's our responsibility to go out and do our homework and know what's happening in the real estate market and the industry, and saying things like, well, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what's going to happen, but you should always just buy. It's always a great time to buy. Sounds just like rhetoric.
Well, let's talk about that real quick, because I pulled up some data and want to share it. First of all, like just a quick market update for Salt Lake and Tooele County. This is the snapshot. Tooele County median sales price is down 11% over the last 12 months, year over year. So Salt Lake County, the median sales price is down 12%. Or no, that Tooele County is 12%, and Salt Lake County, it's only down 4.5%. But here's the big thing that's really interesting that's happening in Salt Lake County: the volume of sales is down 25%, where in Tooele County the volume of sales is only down 12%. So we've got this thing happening where volume's going down in both markets. And by the way, this is happening in Utah County, Davis County, and Weber County as well. These are just the 2 markets that we typically work in. The supply and demand, if you look at any supply and demand graph, and the MLS has some different data that you can pull, we are, with a few exceptions, we are firmly in a buyer's market across the Wasatch Front. And the reason is because even though supply hasn't gone up, like the number of listings hasn't gone up, the number of buyers keeps decreasing. So the law of supply and demand says if the supply stays the same and demand goes down, what has to happen to the price?
The price has to go down.
Price has to go down. And the biggest predictor of future markets are past markets, right? So people are saying, well, we've never seen this before. Right. We haven't seen the factors that have caused this. We've never seen the Fed intentionally tank real estate values. And that's what's happening right now. The Federal Reserve is intentionally tanking real estate values. Like, that's what they say. This is not conspiracy stuff. Jerome Powell is on record saying housing is too expensive.
We have to get it under control.
Like, guys, this is what he is saying. He is the monetary chief. He's the guy who decides what money costs. So, and by the way, I was ignoring him for a long time myself. I thought, nah. And that cost us literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because we kept buying assuming that interest rates weren't going to be affected because of inflation. And I was wrong.
Right.
And you were right.
Yeah.
You said, no, this is coming. And I said, Tiff, there's no way this is going to shift as fast as you think it is. We'll have time. Real estate markets shift slowly. No, this one shifted quick.
Well, and it's not done shifting. Like, there are phases, just like in 2007.
Correct.
2007 is initially when the market started to crash.
Right.
It took some time.
Yeah. In fact, I just pulled up the stat, and we'll put it up on YouTube so you guys can see it. But as you look at home sales, the prices per quarter, and then the volume, an interesting thing happened in the past. 2007. We saw this little dip from 2007 to 2008, month over month. And I remember it and all of us that were in the business, we were cockeyed optimists and we were like, no, the markets can't crash. Like, that doesn't happen. But that's exactly what happened. But it took about 5 years for the market to finally bottom out. And if you look at what's happening right now, if you look at the graph, you'll see that we had this steady run up, and it was due to crash in 2000. Not crash, but correct.
Right.
It didn't happen. The government started printing a lot of money, and so there became more money in the system.
In 2020?
In 2020, what did I say?
I think you said 2000.
2000, I think you're right, yeah. So in 2020, we had COVID happened, and then all the new money started coming into the market, and that drove prices up artificially. It suspended any reversal that was going to come. And now we're just going to see it.
Well, the other things that happened in 2020 is the government, they issued the memorandum, the stay memorandum, saying
foreclosures and
foreclosures were going to completely stop. So basically people could stop paying their rent, people could stop paying their house payment, and they could stay in their homes. And we saw the effect that had.
That affected our business.
Yeah. Because that was, we actually tracked those to try to help those people sell those houses and retain some of their equity without losing it to the bank.
And then we also, if that didn't happen, we would go to the foreclosure sales
and pick them up from there.
We would buy them at the auctions.
Yeah. And that business just completely cut off. But if you think about that, that didn't just, it's not that people just stopped foreclosing. It's that is just pent up supply.
Correct.
That is just being pent up for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Now, the counter to that, Tiff, is that, but now there's all this equity. And we're seeing that, right? People's houses are worth more. In fact, I was just looking at the notice of defaults. And again, the median sales price in Tooele County is around I don't think I said it, but it's around $430,000. And as I was looking at the notice of defaults, the average mortgage amount on those defaults was about $260,000. So if the average default is $260,000 and the median sales price is $430,000, that should be enough to make up the difference. And that's what people are saying. Well, that's what's going to stop the foreclosures.
And there's also a lot of cash buyers out there in the market right now. So that's another factor.
But it's shrinking.
It is shrinking. We're seeing that firsthand.
Yeah, guys, so. I'm just seeing that in my world where I'm out trying to buy the properties inexpensively so that I can remodel them, get them back on the market, and make a margin. There's not as much money. It's not as easy as it was a year ago, and certainly not as easy as it was 2 years ago. And people are being more stingy with the cash that they have.
Yeah.
But you would
Well,
expect.
everybody kind of has this feeling with the economy that like something is just off. Like, and I think it has a lot to do with this huge deficit that, is another topic that we're going to talk about. It's something like 4 trillion. It's a number I can't even conceive of. The amount of debt that the U.S. is in.
Oh, we're over 18 or 19 trillion now. It's a big number that we
ridiculous
don't.
amount.
Yeah, it might as well be like it's a number we can't understand. Like we can't even conceive of a million technically, but the trillion, yeah, we can't. That's not even a number we can understand.
And I have yet to hear any logical explanation as to how we're going to get out of that.
There is none.
How does that, the answer seems to be with these people, these politicians, they're just looking to get reelected. They're kicking the can down the road. I just need to get reelected. So I'm going to make all these promises about lowering these budgets and, giving out all of this money.
Well, that's not even true, Tiff. Like very few people even address it, like politicians. Like, because what ends up happening is they're
asking for the debt ceiling to be raised. They're talking about it, but that's their answer.
They raised it, right? But they don't spend much time talking about money, like politicians right now.
Right.
They don't. They talk about lots of other things,
right?
That have nothing to do with what is actually determining whether or not a family can pay rent, whether or not they can buy groceries, whether or not they can save money for their kids if they want to go to college or they're talking about lots of other things that have nothing to do with that because there is no answer because we've seen what happens in the past. We've seen already what happens when empires go through this change. Ray Dalio, and if you're not following Ray Dalio, follow Ray Dalio. He documents it really well.
Right.
And it's not nothing to be afraid of because like change and turnover.
Just the clearing out of the old energy to upgrade the new is definitely what we're going through in our world right now.
And it's something that happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of it. Everything happens in cycles. And so, and this is a lot of what we're going to talk about today too, is, it's about going through these hard things and looking at them, taking an honest assessment of what's best for your situation and still taking action, not sitting on the sidelines, actually.
How are we doing on our outline?
I think we're doing good.
Okay.
I wanted to touch on renting versus owning, but we're kind of jumping back and forth between here, which I'm fine with.
Okay. So let's talk renting versus owning. This is
Let's take that out. Okay.
Or keep it. Yeah. Renting versus owning. Should you rent or should you own? What's the answer?
So we run a real estate team in our sales meeting the other day. So I'm all about the research. I have to have, the
data,
numbers.
not drama.
Data, not drama. I'm telling Brad all the time, like we need to go off the data to make decisions. And if the data is not there, then we just don't move forward with it, period, the end. Because when you start to let all the drama get involved, that's when you make bad decisions. And I'm not saying you don't use emotions to make decisions because you absolutely do, but you have to have the data to back up your emotional decisions, especially in times like this. So with that being said, one of the things that our agents were coming up against with a lot of their buyers is their buyers were saying, like, I can't afford to buy right now. I'm going to have to buy a smaller house. It's still cheaper for me to rent. And for me, it's important for our agents to be in integrity when they are working with clients. Like I was talking about earlier, it's our job to help people navigate this situation and do what's best for them. And so I wanted real data on what it looks like in our market to rent versus buy a house. So I'm going to share with you guys what I figured out what I shared with my team on what that looks like. So I took the lower median house price, like Tooele County versus Salt Lake County, right, is $426,000, and I wanted to just look at 3-bedroom, 2-bath because I wanted it to be comparable. So to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, it's going to cost you about $426,000 in Tooele.
Which represents how much in a monthly payment with?
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
So, and to rent, okay, so that represents, I use the same mortgage calculator that I've used my entire career to help a buyer figure out what they're going to be paying monthly payment wise, including taxes and insurance. And this is with a 3% down payment, by the way.
So standard FHA purchase.
Yes. That leaves you with a monthly mortgage payment of $2,749.
$2,750.
$2,750 roughly, right? For a mortgage. Then you can go to places like rentler.com, which is where I went. And I was, again, only looking in Tooele at 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And there was a range. I found anywhere from $1,600 to $2,100 a month. You could rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. So that's almost like that's $800 to $1,100 cheaper to rent versus buy right now. So that's why for most situations, it doesn't make sense for buyers to buy right now. Here's my argument for that though. I do want to say, this push, I think, that we're starting to see in our society where you will own nothing and be happy, because there's this other thing that's happening in the background where there are these huge rental communities going up where big corporate money is owning these like neighborhoods and saying these are rent only neighborhoods. We're seeing these 15-minute cities go up. And this may sound like some conspiracy theory to a lot of you, but I think it's something to take into consideration. The Fed is obviously saying, you know, we need to control the housing market. They're making it very difficult for first-time home buyers, for it to make sense for people to sell their house and purchase another one. But with all that being said, I believe in home ownership. Like I was saying before, it is, if at all possible, you should definitely own a home. We could be moving into like dangerous territory where there's fewer and fewer homeowners.
Yeah, so let me explain one of the things that Tiff just touched on. She talked about big corporations buying lots of rentals. There is a new product, like everybody knows about apartment communities. Like that's nothing new. By the way, the apartment community world is getting rocked right now. Values are going down, notes are being called, properties are getting foreclosed on. It's this shadow thing happening that not a lot of people are talking about, and we're going to feel it soon. But there's another product that's coming out, and it's called build-to-rent communities, where big corporations and hedge funds combine to build entire neighborhoods with the intention of renting these single-family homes out long-term, like, you know, on 1 and 2 year leases. I used to work for one of the companies. We worked with one of the companies, American Homes for Rent. BlackRock has another division, and that's all they do. They're building these for rent neighborhoods. In fact, the stat is, as of the close of first quarter of 2023, that business represents almost 8% of all new builds, single-family new builds across the country. Now, you might look at that and say, well, 8%, that's hardly significant. Previously, the high was around 2.5% to 3%. So that has already doubled, more than doubled, in less than 24 months. Now, if it doubles again over the next 24 months, we're at 16% of all new home inventory going to these big corporate owners. So what that does, it does put more pressure on the single family, the family trying to buy their own single family house, because they're going to be competing with BlackRock. They're going to be competing with these big hedge funds to buy single family houses.
Which I think it's really important that we do have the ability to compete with these big corporations. It's very important that the average person have the opportunity to not only own their own home, because that's always where it starts, but there's always so much opportunity when these markets, because actually another fun stat with BlackRock specifically, they actually quit buying. They quit buying this year. But they also are raising more money to buy in the future. So what does that tell you?
The build for rent.
Yes. And so they're still ramping up on all, cash, which for me, I go to, okay, well, they know that the real estate market is about to crash, and that creates opportunity. That creates these opportunities for people to buy up a bunch of houses because people start losing a bunch of houses. Another thing that I'm hearing about, I'm hearing it being called shadow inventory. And this is, a lot of people are saying, well, there's not enough houses, there's not enough houses. Well, one thing that we're not taking into consideration is kind of like we saw the subprime crash of '08, is this sector of people that don't really know. They basically took out these DSCR loans to buy Airbnbs, and they were banking on the revenue from the Airbnbs. That's the only thing that they needed to qualify for these loans is they needed to show what kind of revenue these Airbnbs would generate. So there are a sector of people that went out and bought up a bunch of these. There was an article I read about a waitress that went and bought like $12 billion worth of Airbnb like inventory.
12 billion?
It was a lot. It was a lot. All off DSCR loans.
DSCR loans stand for debt service coverage ratio. You just have to qualify based off of the amount of income that the property produces.
Right. And so there's these Airbnbs that are not performing so well now. And people are like losing a ton of revenue on these Airbnbs. So there's another theory out there that inventory is going to also flood the market, which will, bring the inventory up. And we haven't seen job losses yet. What people are still anticipating. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty out there right now.
Yeah. What we do know is we would anticipate that prices will continue to come down.
Right.
Over the next, if I were to guess, I would estimate somewhere between the next 18 to 36 months. But that doesn't necessarily mean don't buy.
No, because it's like you talked about in 2008, there were pockets, there are areas across the U.S. that don't even, like real estate markets are very area specific.
Region, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes even town and street.
Even towns don't fill it. Certain streets don't fill it. So again, it's knowing what you're getting into. The other thing I would challenge people on, if you're out there, consider buying something that needs a little bit of work. It's the business that we're in. People tend to, they want to buy a house that has, brand new paint and carpet and looks great to move in, but you can actually get a really good deal on something that needs work. And as long as you can get FHA financing on it, there are ways to navigate this real estate market and still come out on top is basically what we're saying.
Right.
It's a conscious navigation of what it is you're up against.
Yeah. This is one thing coming here. Is that where we're at, Tiff?
Yeah.
Okay. So people are I hear other agents and investors telling me we're going to be just fine in Utah. And I've shared this story before, but I'm going to share it again. In 2007, I was raising money for a development that we were doing, me and some partners, an 11-lot subdivision on the east side of Salt Lake. I needed some bridge financing to finalize the purchase, and I think I was looking for $150,000 to $200,000 or so. And I went to an experienced investor. He was 20 years older than me and been doing the business a long time. He was a successful commercial developer, and also lent money. I showed him the comps and how I was pricing it and what I needed and where his loan to value would be, that he would be in a good, secure position. And he looked at it, he looked at the neighborhood, and he said, Brad, I just don't believe it. These were small 7,000, 8,000 square foot lots, and I basically was comping them out at $225,000. It was in a really nice neighborhood in East Salt Lake. And I said, what do you mean you don't believe it? I didn't make these numbers up. These are the comps. And he said, I understand you've got comps. I understand other people have paid that.
Was it the lot or the entire house you were comping at that?
No, it was just the lot.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a high-end lot. They were going to be $600,000 houses, and that was in 2008. Well, we'd build them in 2008. This was in 2007. And I said, what do you mean you don't believe it? And I took it personally. Mm-hmm. He was accusing me of not being integral. And of course I took it personal because I wasn't in a really high integrity point of my life at that point. But I was right. In my mind, I was right about that. Like I had the numbers.
Yeah. You're like, what do you mean? I did a CMA.
Yeah, I did a CMA. This is perfectly fine. In fact, I had an appraisal as well. Like the whole subdivision was appraised at like 2.4 million, finished.
Yeah.
As lots. And I'm like, here, I've even got the appraisal. And he said, yeah, I just don't believe it. And I didn't pay attention. I found somebody else to lend us money who ended up losing money because that property did get foreclosed.
Yeah.
This
is something funny I just want to point out really quick because I was talking earlier about data, not drama.
Yeah.
And this is a situation because I wanted to wrap this up and we'll wrap this up about the importance of listening to your gut because ultimately that's what this guy did.
Yeah.
He was like, these numbers are not right. I know you have the data, but something doesn't feel right.
Right.
And we're talking about, everybody's they have this overall feeling like almost like, something's about to happen. Nobody really knows what it is. But everybody, at least in our network, where real estate is concerned, everybody kind of has this feeling, right?
Well, no.
I guess
because
not
there
everybody.
are a lot of people who are going around and saying, yeah, this was just a slight correction and now we're just going to keep going. But
yeah, I guess I'm more referring to our mastermind. Like it's definitely the overall, like, and there's a lot of there's a lot of agents and team leaders in this mastermind that we're a part of who are feeling the crunch.
Yeah.
So they're considering this. So I guess I just wanted to pipe in and just mention that is the dichotomy of all of it is it's both important. Like listening to your gut is ultimately like going inward and seeking that guidance from within while still having the data, but really gut checking.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of, yes, you need all the data. You can't make decisions absent good information. But once you have all the good information, your ability to make a decision, it comes from something within.
Our coach says, the way he says it all the time is trust your hunch.
Yeah.
Like go within.
Yeah. And so I find myself now I've been in the business 25 years or so, 24 years, the ups and downs. I don't have near as much money as that guy did in 2007, but I'm seeing the same thing and I see it all the time. And I'm looking at these townhome developments that are getting built and remember I showed you that one, we went and toured and they were priced at $409,000 and they even had some comps.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't believe it.
Right.
And it was the same thing. I was looking at it saying, I get it. I get that they got somebody to do this, but this doesn't make sense.
Right.
That price in that neighborhood, in that town, doesn't make sense. And we're now seeing that particular subdivision that we looked at. I don't know if you've looked at it. They've now got their list price down to almost $50,000 less. And I still think there's about $30,000 to $40,000 high.
Well, and here's some more data that this is Salt Lake and Tooele County. I got this information from reventureapp.com, and this guy basically just pulls a bunch of data from all different sources, and he lists the sources and kind of just gives. He has these charts that just display different kinds of information for different markets. And one that I thought was really interesting is the affordability index. And basically what he does is he takes the average income for an area that was listed on last year's census, which it includes Salt Lake and Tooele counties. $88,281 is the average household income, and that's household income. So that's not just one person. If there's two people in that household, it's the whole household. Mm-hmm. And his number for so he used a yearly cost of housing mortgage, like your yearly cost of mortgage, which is $39,911, which comes out to $33.25 a month, which I believe that when you're looking into Salt Lake County as well. So that puts you at 45% income versus mortgage payment ratio.
Well, 45% of your income goes to your housing payment.
Goes to your mortgage.
Yeah.
Which is super high.
Very high. Used to be that the max that was even allowed to qualify was 42%. Actually, when I started, it was like around 39%.
Yeah.
39%. And that was like a high ratio. And now we're with an average of 45%. And I know several people that with different finagling, they're paying over 50% of their income towards their house payment. So anyway.
Yeah.
So should you buy right now? It depends.
It depends.
It depends, like so many things in life. Couple things to consider also. Do we want to talk about foreclosures?
I kind of touched on that stuff already. Went
Okay.
over stats. That's where we're going to go over the stats.
Well, here's something else. One final stat I want to talk about, because we're talking to real estate agents and real estate investors. Total transactions over the last year between Salt Lake and Tooele County and across the Wasatch Front are down anywhere from 15 to 30% year over year. Over the last 2 years, so since the high of 2021, total transactions are down almost 50%. So total number of transactions are down like one half. And so there are very few agents or investors that are not feeling that, because if the transactions go down and you get paid per transaction, your income goes down.
The pie just got significantly smaller.
Yeah.
Almost half.
Well, if the number of agents stays the same.
Yes. Well, that's what I was going to go to is that's what typically happens. Investors and real estate agents are going to leave the market because there's less pie. Mm-hmm. So if you were barely making ends meet before, or if you come up against some strong adversity and you know, it can be scary when you're self-employed and you're coming up against hard times. We see what happens. You either push through and you figure it out and you become super resilient and you pivot and you make the changes necessary in your business to see it through, or you go back to what's comfortable and you go get a job. That's what typically happens in these markets. And there is no right or wrong answer, whatever is best for you. Because it's certainly, I would never tell someone that this is what, like, it's all about your state of mind that you're in at the end of the day. State management is crucial. And we know what it's like to, like, our household has been run off of our business and being self-employed our entire marriage. And it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. And so we've got a few simple strategies that we follow on our team. If you're curious about what those are, we'd love to share those with you. Reach out to us. But at the core, it's the difference between being proactive or reactive. And are you going to be proactive? Anticipate what the changes are that are coming. Innovate so that you can be moving at all times. Or are you going to react? Are you going to sulk? Are you going to complain? It's really just it's your decision about how you want to go through it. You're going to go through it either way. Like this market is not, we're all going to go through it. We're going through it. And by the way, in my opinion, we're about 9 to 12 months into the recession right now. Mm-hmm. If you're still wondering whether or not we're in a recession, please stop. Like, just acknowledge where we are.
It's here.
We are in the middle of it right now. We're at the beginning of it right now.
Well, and I think one of the worst things you can do is just like stick your head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening.
Yes, like anything
because
in
it
life,
doesn't
right?
matter, you know, whether or not you say it's happening or not. Like, it's still going to happen. And just by you know, I feel like there's this misconception that like, oh, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be positive. There is an aspect of delusion at some point that can become toxic as well.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge where we're at. And consciousness is like coming up with a real game plan in this reality. Like, how are you going to deal with this? Because delusion doesn't work.
No. And where that really comes in is an acknowledgement of, okay, these are the challenges. These are the obstacles that we've got in front of us. And then exercising faith, exercising optimism, exercising hope, and moving.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you
forward
have
with
to
that.
get into a negative state of mind, because we are our thoughts. You can look at information and be like, okay, I need to pivot. We need to cut the fat from our business. We need to make some hard decisions, but do it from, it's not easy. Like I hate so nonchalantly saying like, oh, well, you just need to have a positive mindset and you need to stop telling yourself negative stories, because like, I know how hard that is. Like I was just telling you this morning, I'm noticing like all of these negative thoughts, and noticing them is the first step. But then you have to start pre-programming different thoughts, better thoughts.
Yeah.
And you can do that through journaling. You can do that through, a morning practice, affirmations, something that's going to help you literally rewire your brain, because that is what's necessary right now.
Yeah, you can literally go and take those negative thoughts, pluck them out of your brain and get rid of them and say, I'm done with you, Mr. Negativity. I am going to focus on the faith that I'm going to choose in this moment. I'm going to choose faith over fear. I'm going to choose hope. I'm going to choose that all's going to work out for me.
Yeah. And with all that being said, if you are a real estate investor or just a consumer, someone who's needing to buy a house or needing to sell a house, as always, we're here. We have our team. We're happy to help anybody out who's in a situation, or if you need advice, or you want us and our team to represent you through a transaction, we are more than happy to do that. And as always, we bring honesty, integrity, all of the wisdom and experience that we have to serve you.
Yeah.
To help you navigate
one of the
that.
things I'll tell you, like, because I've definitely fallen prey to this before, is the not looking at it and hoping that it will go away. Mm-hmm. You can also call that kicking the can down the road.
Right.
But either way, just not looking at it is probably, the worst thing you can do is lie to somebody about the situation you're in. I've done that. The next worst thing you can probably do is just ignore it as a coping mechanism. And while that it doesn't speak to your intentions, I just know that that's going to lead to pain and suffering. And so if you can, as quickly as possible, just acknowledge it, so that you can, ironically, by acknowledging it, you can release the attachment to it.
Yeah.
As long as you are ignoring it, it's stuck to you. That energy of that, whatever the negative is that's going down, whether it's lack of production, whether it's a bad deal that you've got going on, or maybe it's that you've ignored your significant other so much as you've been dealing with these stresses that your relationship is starting to fall apart. Whatever that thing is, it's a form of attachment. You are coping because you're so attached to this idea of who you're supposed to be or what it's supposed to look like. So by looking at it, you can then release the attachment of what it is, because you can just see it for what it is.
Right.
And not become the resulting identity that comes from, oh, I have a bad deal, or, oh, my wife is mad at me, or my husband's not talking to me, or that's just what's going on.
Right.
And so by acknowledging it, the attachment can be released.
Yeah.
Because now you're not coping with it by ignoring it.
Yeah.
And so it's a really beautiful thing. And by the way, it's super possible.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it. And everybody can go on their own healing journey. And the other thing I'll say, based off of my experience in 2008, where I lost everything, went through a terrible divorce in 2009, ended up going to jail in 2016, the best strategy at whatever point you're at, if you're in a really low point, really is getting very honest about where you're at, and then taking 100% accountability for everything that's happening. It's happening for you. It's literally this gift that's being given to you by divinity. And I know that's so hard when you're in the middle of it. It's the hardest mindset.
Because you're in victimhood, and so you want to just be a victim and you want to blame, and that's necessary. You do need to go through that process,
Yeah.
but at some point that needs to be transmuted into a more empowering story that this has happened for you, and you need to look at all the things, all the ways that you've grown from that,
Yeah.
and take accountability from that and move forward.
Yeah.
So that's valid. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, we're talking about business stuff, and we've been talking a lot about real estate, but I really believe that every single thing that's happening in my life and in your life and in everybody's life, when challenges come up and they bring these emotional, the negative emotions up, that is your sign that healing needs to take place.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, like living a spiritually centered life doesn't mean that you compartmentalize your spiritual practice and then you come to work and you're like this laser focused work person. Your work life is your spiritual practice.
Yeah, we have this phrase that we use often, like the yoga of eating, or the yoga. We mention the yoga of real estate all the time.
All the time.
And basically, what that means is just understanding the duality and using consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, there are two sides of the same coin. The answer is not always yes, and the answer is not always no. It's about taking the 30,000-foot view of everything that you do and noticing the healing opportunities in all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing I want to leave you guys with, the kind of the silver lining and the beauty of ever going through a tunnel, because we're going to go through tunnels. That's where the learning opportunities are. But the phrase, the light at the end of the tunnel, I love it, because there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There is always something that you've learned, and beauty. Like, that's the good times, right? Like, you can't have the good times without the bad. And so the other thing the thing I want to leave you guys with on this topic is that the cool thing about recessions and down markets is where average folks become millionaires, because housing prices are low. And if you can just stir up enough courage to step into the arena in the first place and get yourself in a good financial position, and you can pick up real estate for really inexpensive. And the thing that we know about real estate, if you own it and hold on to it, it will appreciate. And housing is a basic need. Everybody needs housing. And I think this is just really important for the average person to understand how important and life-changing owning real estate can be.
That's a great point. And one of our goals is the goal of enlightenment, or the result of enlightenment, a journey of enlightenment, is finding lasting happiness, joy, freedom, true freedom, lasting happiness. And real estate gives you an opportunity to accomplish that, true freedom. I mean, you and I both bought houses. I bought mine in the 90s, my first 90s. You bought your first one in 2001. I bought that house for $95,000. Do you know how many more of those I'd like to own right now? Like, as many as I could have, that I bought in 1996 or 1997.
Right.
For $95,000. I would have, and even if I had to pay $101,000, I wish now I owned 10 of them, because that same neighborhood, those houses are selling for $425,000. So if I owned 10 of them, I would have owned 10 of them for $1 million, and today they would be worth $4.25 million.
Yeah.
That would give me, without any mortgage pay down, an equity position of $3.2 million.
Yeah.
Think of the good we could do.
Yeah.
If we had $3.2 million.
Yeah.
And just that alone. So,
well, and there are some really positive things about the world that we're living in today. While, it does cost more to own a home, I think there is more opportunity than there ever has been. That's not necessarily tied or dependent on anybody else. Like, your financial freedom doesn't have to depend on anybody else. It does take some courage, but with social media, with the ability to build online businesses, like with the amount of side gigs and hustle money that's available to people out there, like, you really can think outside the box. We're not limited to just a 9-to-5 anymore, you know? So
yeah. So go out and get in the arena one way or another. And if you don't know how, curious what we think, give us a call or shoot us a message. We'd love to chat with you. That's one of the things we love to talk about.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is also super crucial.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to wherever you're watching this. You can find us on Facebook, Tru Conscious Couple, or Instagram, Tru Conscious Couple. YouTube is also Tru Conscious Couple, and you can find our podcast anywhere where you like to listen to podcasts.
That's right. And until next time, just keep in the arena. Stay at it.
Bye.
See ya. This podcast is brought to you by the Tru Agency Real Estate Team. If you are looking to buy, sell, or especially right now, invest, by the way, you should be investing in real estate right now, contact us. Or if you're a real estate agent that is committed to personal growth, we need to talk. We are looking to grow our real estate team. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, or you're a real estate agent and you need growth, contact us. Also brought to you by Tru Studios. If you are in Tooele County or nearby, we record, edit, produce, distribute all parts of your podcast. We give you the space, the time, the expertise so that you can have your own podcast. All you have to do is show up, be there, and then we handle everything else. So if you've always wanted to have podcasts, don't know how to start, don't know how to do it, get a hold of us. Reach out. You can reach out to us at Tru Studios or Tru Conscious Couple or Tru Agency Team. Reach out to me, reach out to Tiffany, reach out to Trenton. All of us are available. We would love to help you get that out. Thank you so much.